like to welcome everyone. Thank you for coming and taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend the Principal Investigator's NUCOR drop-in session. My name is Tom Stanishuk and I'm the training manager in NUCOR, but also the lead trainer, and I'll be delivering the presentation to you today. Before we go into the content, which is what we are here all for, I just want to talk about the purpose of the session. So the session is 90 minutes long, as you know. It is designed to give you an overview of the NUCOR functionality that is available to you when we go live, when you get access to your accounts. But for more in-depth information and any online training that you might wish to access, there is a course on Canvas. It's open for everybody to see, and I'm sure you are all familiar with the Canvas platform. It's course 30112. We have a structured content of online e-learning materials, step-by-step guides, various other guides. What will also happen on this page is very soon I will also create a page for Principal Investigators. So what I will do is I'll structure the content of that page to mirror the content of this session, so that then you can replay it, revisit the content again, because we are going live in June. It is April. Just in case you need to refresh your memory on certain aspects of the functionality, that page will be made available to you, and the professional services, your school operations teams will circulate that link to you so that you have it one-stop shop. You'll be able to access all that content in there. Also worth mentioning that the school operations teams we are working very closely with, they are all already NUCOR trained. We keep them constantly updated of all the new developments, so they are always going to be your support team that you can always go to, and they'll be able to answer all of your queries and advise you on how to do certain things on the system, and also advise you of the processes, associated processes with them. So this is our purpose. And by the way, I am panoptoing the session, so I'll also make that available again if you wish to replay the content of the session. So let's move on to looking at that. What I want to start with is what is NUCOR? So might as well get that out of the way. NUCOR is the new finance, HR, payroll, recruitment, grant management system that is replacing a whole host of disjointed systems that we are using at the moment, which are very, very old. Some of them are 20, 30 years old. It's time. In fact, it is long overdue for this institution to move on to an integrated system. Does that eliminate all the systems? The answer is no. We are still integrating with lots of other systems at the university. But hopefully, by introducing a more integrated system, we are going to reduce some of the complexity of our processes and streamline them and make them better for everyone. What you will have is the access to the system is role-based. So there are different roles on the system, like employee, line manager, project manager, financial analyst, and so on. That will all be taken care of, but what we'll be looking at today is functionality that is available across a mix of those different roles. It's just something to bear in mind, because when you access Canvas, you will see that the content is structured per those different roles. So you'll see employee, line manager, hiring manager, and so on. And you will, as principal investigators, have access to actually quite a lot of these roles. So just so you know. So let's have a look at the actual content. I will be accessing, for majority of the session, the training environment. So that is not the environment that we will be going live with. It's a training environment. It's good enough for presentation. But what that means is all my information on it is dummy data. These accounts are not real. So just something, again, to bear in mind. The first thing we're going to have a look at is personal details, updating personal information and accessing payslips. You might be aware that we will stop paper circulation of payslips. So once we're into June, our first June payslip at the end of June will appear on NUCOR for you to download. So I need to show you where you can access that. Also, with regards to personal information, this is something we've never had access to before, but now we will, and we will own all the updates to it, because it is our personal information, apart from very selected group of HR administrators. Nobody else will have access to it, so we own it. So I'm going to start with that. Think of this as a bit of a warm-up act for today. Then we're going to raise an expense claim, and I put the word self-serve in it. Self-serve is one of the guiding principles behind new core. This has been signed off by UEB. This is the direction we want to go in as an institution. And the expense claims, very important functionality for principal investigators to demonstrate, and it is going to be based on self-serve, so I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. Hopefully you will walk away thinking, actually it's quite intuitive and simple. That's my aim for today. Then we're going to access some line manager functionality, because up until that point, the expenses and personal information, that is linked to the employee role. But you will also be line managers. You might have research fellows that you're managing. So for the purpose of the roles on the system, you are classed as a line manager. What that means is when they submit their own annual leave requests, it's not going to be a paper form like it is now and you put a signature on it. It is all going to be done online. So I need to show you how and what those approvals of those notifications look like. And that also is for expenses. Because they will also be submitting expense claims, and expense claims go to line managers for approvals as well. Then, kind of probably the most interesting part of the session, I should imagine, for you guys, is showing you the finance report, running the PI report. Now, I'm not familiar 100% in exactly what sort of financial information you have access to now. I've heard ranging from very little to none. But there is a really nice PI report that has been built, which I'm very keen to show you, which you will be able to use to track the expenditure and commitments on your projects. So I'll show you how you can access those. And for this part of the presentation, I'll actually access the testing environment. This will be a slightly different environment, much closer to the one that we will ultimately be going live with. There's some meaningful data in there, so I will run that report for you and talk you through exactly what sort of information you can read from it. Then optionally, if I have time, which when I ran this session on Tuesday, I ran out of time. I didn't have that time. I will show you some hiring manager functionality, particularly focusing on viewing applications and maybe leaving notes for your shortlisting. This is the kind of part of the process that you might be sort of, as a principal investigator, most involved in. Everything else, and that's moving on to the outside scope, for the hiring manager, so raising the recruitment requisition and also progressing to offer stage, you will be supported within your school operations teams with, so that is outside the scope. However, if you're interested in it, because you could potentially be a hiring manager from start to finish if you so wish, I have a slide at the end that explains what sort of training opportunities are there for you to gain more in-depth knowledge on that. Also outside scope is WorkTribe. So I also have a slide on that, just to talk a little bit about the sessions and training available for WorkTribe if you wanted to be involved in that. I am going to now come out of my presentation and log into the environment. So I'm logged in as an employee. So like I said, this is my dummy login. It's not a real person, obviously. And for those of you who are looking at the screen for the first time, just quickly explain what you're looking at. This is the blue screen of Nucor. It's very blue. At the top, you have a greeting. Good morning, an employee. The system knows the time of day. It's clever enough. If it's afternoon, it's afternoon. And if you happen to be working really late into the evening, you will also say evening. So it's quite nice like that. Underneath that greeting, you have some headings. Me, my team, product management, projects, and so on. So depending on the type of access you have into the system, the roles that are given to you, you might have more or less of these headings. And if I start clicking through them, you can see what happens. The sort of middle part of the page changes. And if I go back to me and scroll a bit down, you can see in the middle these apps, these tiles. So think of these as your gateways to the parts of the functionality you want to access. So if we wanted to check our personal information, which I'm going to click on next, you click on the personal information tile. So different functionality is accessed in this way. On the left-hand side, you have this list of quick actions. So for example, if you wanted to edit your personal details, what you could do is click on personal information, then click on edit, and it will take you to the edit my details page, or you could also click on the shortcut, the first quick action, edit my details, and it will take you straight into that page. So it is just a list of shortcuts, other ways to navigate around the system. You will find your own preference with time. Let's scroll back up just to show you what's happening at the top. In the top left corner, you have the Oracle logo, which in the live environment is going to be replaced with the University of Birmingham logo. It is going to be a properly branded system. I had a look at what that looks like, and it looks really nice. But in the training environment, it's Oracle. But in both, you can see, and you will be able to see these 3 horizontal bars. If I click on it, this is what we call a navigator. And it has the same headings that we saw at the front. Me, my team, product management, project, and so on. And if I expand on one of them, let's say me, you can see personal information is in here. You get access to the same links as you had on the front screen. So it's another way to navigate around. The nice thing about the navigator, no matter where you are within the system, the navigator is always visible. So you can just very quickly navigate around the system without having to come back to the front screen. However, if you wanted to, on a far top right hand side, you have the home icon. If you click on that, it will take you back to the screen. You can always start again. Next to it, very important, something that I'm going to have a look at later, is the bell icon, and it has a number. This is our notifications area. So whenever there's a system notification that will come through for different reasons, we'll have a look at some. Maybe your research fellow submitted an absence request. That notification will come through in your bell icon at the top right. You'll be able to access it from there and perform an action on it. This is something that will have a look at and show you later. Any questions about navigation before we move on? Okay, so now let's imagine it's June, 3rd of June, we've gone live, you're logging in for the first time. What we will be asking all staff to do, absolutely everyone, just to go in and check the personal information. We are migrating that data from very, very old systems. So we did our best to cleanse it. In majority of cases, it will be all okay, no issues. But just in case, it's always prudent just to check, am I set up on the system correctly? In order to access that, I will click on personal information, which will take me to my details page. And if I enlarge this a bit, what you can see here is you will see your contact information. So you will see your work email, home address, personal contacts if you have any on the system. This will probably, for majority of us, will be completely blank. So think of personal contacts as next kin details. Then on the right-hand side, you have biographical information. You'll see your last name, your title, first name, date of birth, and so on. On the left-hand side of that, you have some more tabs to click through. You will have your employment details, my documents, benefits, payroll, and compensation. I will not click on all of those, but it is quite important that you do when we go live so that you can check, oh, is my job title actually correct on the system, and so on. Obviously, it will be, but do check and see if all your employment details and your employment history is correctly loaded. So maybe I'm reviewing this screen, maybe I'm checking my address, and I noticed, oh, something isn't quite right with this address. It's not 10 Holly Lane, it's actually 12 Holly Lane. In the top right corner, I have an option to edit these details. And this is new, this is not something we've ever had access to before. So now I'm in the Edit My Details page, and I can see my address here, and there's a pencil icon, which is for editing. And if I click on that, it will make all the fields available for edit. So I can make my edit and say, this is not 10, this is 12. Majority of cases, obviously, you would be updating this if you, for example, were moving, changing address, and so on. The nice thing about the system is it has a concept of an effective start date. So that effective start date will default into today's date, but you can future date it. So you know you're moving in 3 weeks' time, you can future date these updates, save it, the system will make the change at the right, correct, effective start date. On the left-hand side, you can keep clicking through those different tabs, biographical information, contacts, documents, disability information, and update all of that in one go if there is something that needs updating or needs changing, amending, and so on. When you are done with your amendments, in the top right corner again, you have an option to save and close. So that's what I'm going to click on. Once I've saved, now you can still see the home address is still 10 Holly Lane, and that is because the change that we've just made has entered a background process that just needs to run. It takes a couple of minutes, and then the change takes effect. Everything you see here, it's your personal data, you can update, and it does not require any approvals, but there is one exception. If you change your title or your name, this will trigger a notification to HR, and they will need to see a document confirming your name or title change, which is something that we have to provide them with now as well. And then once they receive it, once they see it, they will click approve, and that change will appear here on your biographical information. Everything else, you can change your address, you can change your details to what it needs to be, because it's your personal details, you own this. So now we are kind of, our confidence in navigating around the system is growing. Now we want to see if we got paid. So I'm going to click on the payroll tab, because this is where the payslips will be stored going forward. And the answer is no. We haven't been paid, but you can see we have the word payslips underneath our initials, kind of just about. So you know what you would be looking at here is a table of payslips. Now this is training environment, we haven't run payroll on this environment, and we never will, which is why there is no data to display. But you can clearly see the headings, period start date, end date, amount, and payment date. So our June, July, August payslips will appear on this page. You'll be able to download them. It's PDF documents, so you can download it, you can send it to your personal address, you can print it off, you can do whatever you want. You can also leave it here. For as long as you're an employee and you have access to the system, you'll be able to access your payslips. So even if you are here in 10 years' time, you'll still be able to access your very, very first June payslip after we go live. So that is how easy it is. And by the way, on the right-hand side, you have an option to also edit, amend, and change your bank details. In case you change your banks, you do it all on the payroll tab on the personal information screen. Question?
To actually occur, will that be June's? Because we won't be taking any past payslips.
We won't be taking any, so I'm thinking end of June.
Thank you.
End of June payment.
Will be the first one.
Will be the first one, yes.
Thank you.
Will be the first one that will appear, but we are, thank you, Kate, we are not migrating any past information, so still keep hold of your paper payslips that you are receiving now, because these are your payslips, and then the new payslips in electronic format will start appearing once we go live. But day one, your page will look exactly the same. It will be blank, no data to display, and they will start appearing. Last thing to say, also P60s will be loaded up on this page. So once a year, there's going to be another line for the P60. Super easy. Any questions? Lovely. I'm going to go back to my home screen and move on to submitting expenses. So I'm still within me. It's still all about me at this stage. I'm going to scroll down, and the last tile that I have here in this string of tiles is called expenses. So I know this is the functionality I need to click on to access it. So when I do that, this will take me to my expenses page, and depending on how many expenses claims you submit, this might be a less busy, more busy page. I have already got some on here, so I have a history of expense claims. But in the top right corner, you have an actions drop down, which gives you an option to create a new expense report. So this is where you would be accessing it, actions, create expense report. And if I click on that, this will take me to a blank create expense report page. So you can say maybe you need to start with a purpose, which is effectively a title of your report. What was the expense? You can say maybe it was travel to Coventry. At the moment, there's nothing on the report, zero, no money to reimburse. It's because you have to add some expense items on it. So underneath, you have the line for expense items and this plus icon to create an expense item to add to this report. So that's what I'm going to click on, and this will take me to now create expense item page. The date will not default into today's date. It will default into the date that I have used previously on the expenses page, which, if you think about it, makes sense, because in the majority of cases, when you are traveling to Coventry, you might be incurring maybe multiple expense items, and then you will be adding multiple expense ones here, and the date for them would always be the same, so it saves some time, I guess. I'm not going to change it. The main thing for today is selecting the right type. So these are the types of expenses that are available to us. None of this is new. We can still claim for all of these things. It is happening now. It will happen going forward. The expense policy is not gonna change. So because it's travel to Coventry, I'm gonna pick travel UK. So I'm using this example for travel, but obviously in majority of cases, if not all cases, you will be going to key travel for all your traveling needs. But just in case you have a reason to claim for travel, then it's always a good example to show. Then I can say maybe my amount was £100, so I want to claim £100 back. Hey. So once I've filled in my type, my expense location defaulted into United Kingdom, my amount is in GBP, which, by the way, you can update and change that to foreign currency in case that is what you need to do. So this is where you do it. Then in the description, I can say maybe I put the purpose as travel to Coventry, but maybe actually my expense was hotel. Maybe that was my expense. This is what I paid for. Maybe I sorted myself out with key travel, but then something happened and I had to stay for another night, and then I just paid on my own. I don't know. Anything can happen. So once I've done that, I actually have to click, because of the type of the expense that this is, Travel UK, I actually have to itemize this amount and tell the system exactly what I have paid for, which will take me to the itemization page. And if I click on the type, you can see that the Travel UK has a number of subtypes that are available to you. You can claim for car hire, car parking, subsistence, train travel, and so on. So like I said, this was a hotel expense, so I'm going to pick Hotel UK. And when I pick my type, obviously I have my date, which has defaulted in. I will say maybe my daily amount was, actually, just to make it different, £50. But I actually spent 2 days. So I'm updating that, and then my total gets calculated to the full 100. So now I have itemized the £100 fully. I spent it all on hotels. In majority of cases, maybe you need to create more items because maybe you paid for hotel, maybe you paid some for subsistence, and so on. In which case you can always create another line and itemize it in this way. So in the description, I can say stayed at hotels RS. That could be R. Maybe that's where we stayed. On the right-hand side, you have these sort of two kind of account, I want to say, codes present. I will explain exactly what this is, because it's a major change that is coming with new code that is affecting you in this way, and I have a slide for both. So bear with me, I'm going to bring that up. On the expenses page and also on the requisitions page, you have an option to charge an account to it. So at the moment, our accounts work in a way that we have a single ledger. Everybody is following the same account code structure, element 1, element 2, element 3. I'm sure you are all familiar with the structure. This is all being replaced. We are not going to be using that going forward. There's going to be a new set of codes that will replace that. And in fact, there will be 2 sets of codes. You will be able to charge your kind of normal expenditure accounts, but also projects separately. So the research projects, I'm thinking research projects, this is the part that is really important and key to you. Projects have kind of, on the new system, their own subledger. I won't go into great detail what that means, but what that does do is it means we are capturing that financial data in its own kind of different, separate way. And that separate way is called the POET code. And we love our acronyms at the university. It obviously stands for something. So each letter stands for P, project number, O, organization, so that's the lead organization for it. Then E is the expenditure type that is enabled on that particular project to be charged against. And also each project has a structure of tasks, and you can charge a specific task on each project. So at the moment, when you have your project codes, it's a string of letters and then a number, followed by a number. So what will happen for all of your migrated projects, the digits that make up your current project code will become your project number in the system. New projects will be assigned, obviously, a new project number. But the numeric part of your current code will stay. This will still be migrated over, and this will become your project code. The letters are identifying, they tend to identify the funder. That information, which funder this is against, will be captured at the task level. So each funder will have a task you would be charging against. So this is the change. I'm going to show you an example in a minute, because at the moment I appreciate it's kind of a bit abstract. This is what's coming. So we have the pod codes. So you will be entering them at the purchase requisitions lines, or maybe your staff, your research fellows will be entering them there, but also expense items, and you already saw an example of that. So that's kind of one set of codes, and the most important one that affects you the most. There is also, generally speaking, a new budget code structure for all of our other expenditure budgets. So for example, in your case, that affects you would be student entry accounts. So these would just be, they are not projects, they're normal classed as normal expenditure accounts, in which case they will have their own separate budget structure. It has 7 segments, so again it comes with some complexity to it, but I kind of grayed out the first one and the latter 2, because these are the ones that you have to kind of think least about. You don't have to worry about these at all. You have the analysis, which is an equivalent of element 1 code. It won't be the same code, but it is an equivalent of it, so you understand what that means. Then cost center, very similar, equivalent to element 2 code. It won't be the same code again. It will be a different code, but it will work in a very similar way. And then we have the activity and source of funds, which is our element 3 code that we have now split into these 2 parts. The reason why we did it was we are using element 3 code at the moment to capture a lot of information, and we are creating a lot of those codes to try and identify the type of spend that we want to do on it. Now we split it, that will mean that we will actually counterintuitively be creating perhaps less strings of fewer codes, in which case our financial information will be more powerful. So this is something to be aware of. Your finance business partners have been involved in remapping the old values, element 1, 2, and 3, into these new values, and obviously projects will have their own poet code. So it is a shift. It is something that you may need to speak to them about and ask them the question, what my new codes are going to look like, what am I selecting? But the practical application, if I come out of this, on my expenses example is, by default, I will get this string of 7 segments on here, and I'm already saying by default, because there is going to be a default that will appear here. By default, your department where you are based will be charged for this expense. If you ever needed to update it, there is an option to click on this blue icon and then amend any of the values if, for example, you need to change the cost center from a particular institute that you're based in to maybe College Hub, because maybe College Hub is paying for some of the expenses. This is all local. Do find out if there's anything you need to do here. In majority of cases, you would actually not particularly interact with this. However, if you wanted to charge your project, underneath that account, you will have the option to do so. So you'll be able to pick your project, and for migration project, like I said, you already know the number of it, because it will be the digits that are following the letters. For new projects, also, when they become live, the research finance will provide you with that code. They will tell you exactly what it is. You will be able to put that project number in here. In case of any doubts, you'll be always able to search not only by value but also by description. So every project will have a name, so you can start searching for it just in case, oh, I forgot my value, what the value was. The system is quite nice like that. It doesn't ask you necessarily to remember all your numerical values. We appreciate that. It could be a lot to take in. Yes?
If we're charging to the project, we only change that part and not the one above with the several.
Precisely, because what that does is you have to put in the project number and then the task number as well, which you are able to select from. So we can see that the biosciences in this case is where this is based. I only have one task, but maybe I would have multiple. But again, you would know exactly which one to pick. So this is like 2 letters of the poet code, so you may be thinking, oh, where is the rest? I was just telling you about before. So the expenditure item, the expenditure type will be driven by the type of the expense you chose, so you don't have to pick the expenditure type, will default it, and obviously the dates will populate from there as well. So that's how it's handled. But when you start putting in the project numbers and the task numbers, the account code at the top will automatically update itself, because ultimately all the poet codes are mapped against the general ledger account codes, but you do not have to worry about both at the same time. You only just worry about one at a time. So for projects, you select your projects, you don't have to worry about anything.
So Tom, the project number was pre-populated.
Yes.
Will that happen
No.
in the system?
It's only pre-populated because the system is designed in such a way that it remembers what I've entered previously. So you are happy to continue and say, oh yeah, this is the project. So I'm maybe sitting down and doing a job of putting a number of expenses against the same project. So the system is just defaulting into what I've put previously, just like with the date, to speed things up. It's just helpful. But you might have to be aware of that, and it's helpful to know because actually maybe the default, remembering it, you may need to change it. So it is something to remember. I have a default into a project I used previously, and in the majority of cases this will be helpful, but nothing stopping you, and then starting again. So let's see if I can. Once I'm done with my itemization, I click close. What that then did was it has put my item, Travel UK, in here, and it also gave me a message that I have forgotten to put an image receipt on it. So I wouldn't do it anyway, but it is very important that you do when you are submitting expenses, because another change that we are making, we are actually accepting scans and photos of receipts. So no more keeping paper copies. As long as there's a legible photo that you took on your phone and you sent to yourself and then attach here, or you put them all on a tray and scan them all to fit one page. As long as there's that image and it's clearly visible, once you attach it here and it all adds up to the right amounts, nobody will ever question it. So hopefully this will speed things up for everyone, and then you do not have to keep the originals as long as you have the electronic copies of it. Question?
Which content on this page or this section will go to eventually transaction report, the title? For example, we have a research grant, 1 year or 3 years, end of it, and we will review all the transactions. So there's the title.
Yeah.
So which one will go to as the title?
I think it's the purpose, but I will need to go away and check that. But when I'm checking the report, the PI report later, I will show you exactly where you will be able to identify that particular cost.
So if the purpose travel to Coventry will go to transaction report, I think it's currently we can't just claim travel for travel, because they say, well, I go to Coventry,
Yes.
this is how much. Do not put the nature of the travel. So currently, we purpose should be like, International Congress of New York on Cancer Science.
That's okay.
So then this go to
Yeah.
transaction report.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the day, when we review it, if it's overspent, then we could move to another grant. Depends on the nature of the purpose. But the travel, then we can't see what is the purpose.
That is okay because only for purpose of today, I just put something in there.
Right, yeah.
Travel to country, obviously you would make the purpose meaningful to you and as descriptive as you need it to be, so that you could then easily identify it on the list on the budget report. So it's just for today, it's just very nondescript, travel to Coventry.
So purpose will go to transaction part.
I actually thought I was quite specific, but yes, I wasn't.
Tom, the question is, if you look at that blue bar,
Yeah.
it's just got Travel UK. And the question is, it'd be great if that more detailed purpose, travel to Coventry, was what actually appeared on the budget report.
Okay.
That's right.
I'll need to check that back. I don't know exactly what that looks like on the report. I do not know.
I mean, particularly at the end of a grant, then overspend, we need to identify some just, move to another grant, but we have to determine which one is suitable. So it's only travel, so we don't know which purpose.
I'm hoping it's a more detailed one, but
I'll show you the level of detail you see on the actual report. I might not have an expense loaded on it. I can't remember seeing it, but hopefully it will give us an idea of the kind of detail that we see on the report when we get there. So hopefully that will make it hopefully a little bit clearer. But I will check that specific question, how expenses appear on the budget report. Is it easily identifiable? And so on. So which descriptions? It's a good question. So I'll check that. I will take that away. So once we are done with our expense report, obviously I could keep adding more expense items and so on. But for today, I will say that I've completed my task. I'm ready to submit. And in the top right corner, I have submit, but it is grayed out, and that is because there is something missing. Underneath the amount, I have a disclaimer. I have read and accept the corporate travel and expense policy. You just need to tick the box that you are aware of the policy, and you tick it, and you click submit. What the system will tell me is it will give me a warning, one or more required image receipts. So the system is configured to let you know, oh, you haven't loaded the receipt. But it will allow you to submit the report anyway. Even if you have any violations on it, it will still allow you to submit it because there might be a valid reason why you are claiming back more than you need to, because maybe you went to Coventry and it was, I don't know, World Championship in football, and maybe you paid £200 a night in a hotel because all the prices shot up, but you really needed to be there, in which case you should get the money back. So it is there to keep you aware, make sure that you know what you're doing. So I'm going to click yes. Right, yeah, I am okay with this. Now I know expense report was submitted for approval. So it is. Without me talking, it would probably take just a couple of minutes. So it's quite easy to do. Any questions about the codes, the budget code, the POET codes, budget codes, expenses as a whole? Okay, lovely. Let's talk about approvals. So what I will do now, and this is something you wouldn't necessarily be doing, in fact you wouldn't be doing that at all. I was logged in as an employee. Let's say maybe I was this research fellow and I was submitting my expense report. I'm going to sign out and now log in as the manager. Because like I said at the beginning, system, the access you will have on the system will also give you the line manager functionality if you have any direct reports that you are line managing. So now I'm logged in as Millie, who's Anne's an employee's line manager. So let's talk approvals. Those requests that are going to be coming through from your direct reports will be coming to you as notifications. So I already mentioned notifications at the beginning. They sit in the bell icon at the top with a number. So I'm going to open that in a minute. But what happens with each notification, there is also an associated email that comes to your inbox so that you know exactly, oh, somebody submitted, let's say, that expense claim or maybe annual leave request. The nice thing about the email is you will be able to perform an action on it from within the email. So you'll be able to click approve without actually having to log into the system. So we're not asking you to stay logged in to the system and keep looking at that bell icon, oh, is there a notification coming or not? There is going to be an email alerting you to that fact. But once you decide to log in and check your notifications, you would click on the bell icon. So I'm going to focus on the top two, which are my new notifications. You can see the second one. It's approval of absence request from an employee, which I have submitted an hour ago. So I have done that. And also the expense report, which I have just done. you can see that that came through as a notification to approve. Question?
So the notifications for expenses, personal staff, do they go to the line manager or do they go to the people named as approvers on those budget codes?
So that is a change. It's a very good question. Thank you for it. It's a change. So what we have set it up as is it follows the line manager structures. So line managers will be asked to approve reports. And what we are asking the line managers to do is not to check the receipts, not to check the amounts. We are asking you to check, to approve it in principle. Because you as line managers will know, yes, my member of staff went to Coventry. Yes, I know it because I work with them, they work for me. I know this has happened. What will also happen is once you click approve, that triggers another approval in finance office. This notification goes to expense auditors, and they receive it and they check all the receipts. They check all the policy violations if everything is okay, and they liaise with the member of staff to make sure that all the issues, if there are any, are resolved. So there is that two-stage approval. You are just checking. Yeah.
But the request itself only goes to the line manager, because if a budget code or like a project code has multiple people enabled to authorise on that code, it will only still go to the line manager.
Yes. Yes. So that's where for any authorization of spend, there might have to be a local process around how that conversation happens. So because your direct reports will potentially could be selecting projects. So it's just making sure that they are aware, yes, we can do this, we can charge this account, because you will not necessarily, as line managers, have that ability to gauge, if that makes sense.
Are you able to submit expenses on anybody else's behalf?
No. So it is self-serve. Very much self-serve. Lady at the back.
PhD students, because they also claim expenses on our grants. Presumably they won't have access to this system. How will they do it, and who approves that, because they don't have a line manager in the same way?
So they are they paid on payroll?
They're non-staff.
In which case, it's paper-based. It's paper-based, so they'll be following a very similar process to what they do now.
Okay.
So think of the expense functionality as if members of staff are on payroll, they will be reimbursed for this through payroll. Everybody not on payroll, they will have to follow the paper process, paper-based process. So that is going to be quite similar. So hopefully that will introduce some controls in place and ease your mind.
Actually,
Yes.
also Prof can do claim on behalf of Prof. Lots of PA working in the school, they do the job for professors. So can this PA claim anything on behalf of Prof?
It is, the focus is on self-serve. It's
So
the
Prof-
guiding principle, the shining star of Newcon that guides us. It's self-serve, and that's how we built the system.
But some Prof is really very busy. They always, today is in New York, tomorrow is Paris. Then lots of
I believe the principles of the fusion oracle system that we built here and that's been agreed with the UEB is that everybody has to self-serve. I understand that there will be elements where people are very busy.
yes.
I promise I do. But we, as a university, have built this system to reflect that they are claims that you will have to pursue yourself. You're looking for delegation, and unfortunately the system's not able for that. So our apologies, and I will await the tsunami of unhappiness that will come, I am sure, but I know that we as a university have decided against that.
It does make me think though that there's one job a PA may do, which is actually just to do the scanning of the receipts for you, and then say, look, here's the receipt for that expense you had. Don't forget to put it into the article. So at least there's the bits that process, I think, PA
I was going to say, I think nowadays as well, though, you don't even have to save the copies. If you're in a restaurant or you're out somewhere, you just take a photograph of the receipt as you get it,
Absolutely.
and at that point you can upload it. So if you're in New York one day and Paris the next, when you're sat in your hotel room after you've been out for a conference or a day in New York, you scan your receipts, you upload it to the system. It's done, it's done just as you don't have to think, oh, I've got to save that somewhere, so I'm going to take it back so someone else can scan it for me.
I've got to tell you this, I was at Manchester University with this very same system in 6 years. And I promise you, although there was some kickback, the professors, and I'm sure they're as busy as ours here, do self-serve.
I'm not problem with that. The thing is, some people just
Because
give
you don't have to,
receipts,
you
this
know,
is my receipts.
we don't even have to do any of that. You know, we don't have to sit there by a photocopier and do that. You know, 99.9% of us have to, you know, have a little smartphone that we just play with.
Just to make it absolutely clear, this is not an IT implementation project, although obviously we are implementing a new system. It's very much a change project, so there is going to be some disruption to the ways of working that we are used to following and have for years. So there will be shifts, but it is a game of give and take. So hopefully you will find that the system is intuitive enough, it's designed to help you, it's designed to process things quickly, it gives you the financial information that you need, it cuts down on the number of processes, approvals, and so on. That's how it's been done.
Is there a process in place, say, if the line manager was away for an extended period of time?
Yes.
So there is a way to delegate the line manager role, but, and that's the only role that you can delegate, the considerations that you need to think about when you are doing this is you are giving another person, for a limited number of time, it is a start and an end date, the ability to view all of your direct reports employment details. That means salary, compensation, extra rewards, the full history of their annual leave, absences taken. That is a huge responsibility. There is no way to chunk it up. You give it all.
Okay, when you give all of that, are you also giving your information, or is it just your direct reports?
They are you.
They are you.
Okay, so it's your, also
They are
your
you.
personal information.
And you've
as well.
also got to remember, and this is something that is monitored on this system.
Yeah.
Again, Manchester, there's also Newcastle, they do it there as well. If you do delegate your line management with a start and an end date, it can't be the 1st of January 2019 and go through to the 31st of December 2019. You see what I'm saying? The system will flag that. Not that anybody would. Delegate for 12 months. Do you see what I'm saying? So it would be for a specific time period. I'm just informing you because my wonderful friends and colleagues from the world in Manchester, they thought you could delegate it for 52 weeks of the year. You can't. Because I'll spot it and I'll come, you know, I'll come and say, oh, there's been an accident. Remove it.
But there was a question here.
I was going to say, can you do this on a mobile app?
We're working on it.
We're working on it.
It is working in some areas, but there are certain issues that some countries do not allow it. So we are working on those. In some apps don't always take and work and interface into this ERP system. So we're working on that. So yes, it's there, but it's not 100% at this moment in time.
Can you access it off site?
Yes, but you will need the two-factor authentication, so you have to have that set up on your computer if you haven't got that already. So there's an IT Service Desk article, how to request it, it's called remote access, and you can even do it now and use that to access all other university systems. So it is a super helpful tool to have. I would recommend everybody to have that. So coming back to our notifications, so they come through as this kind of as these notifications in our bell icon. So what you can do from here is already you are getting a lot of information on that notification without even clicking on it. So I can see approval of absence request from Anne from 12th of April to 12th of April. So I know she requested 1 day. But it is and you have an option to approve straight away from here. So if you literally just had a conversation with Anne, she said, I would submit it, then you see it through, you can just probably, in majority of cases, just click. But obviously for the purpose of the session, I'm actually going to click on the detail, which will, triggers a pop-up window. And I can see exactly the detail of that absence. So I can see Anne's requested annual leave days. She ticked the single day box. She requested the 12th of April. The duration is 1 day. And she put the comments as discussed because maybe a few minutes ago, like I said, she had a discussion with you and said, is it okay if I book this time off? And you said yes, in which case all you do is go in and approve. In the top right corner, you have these options to approve and reject. Do remember when you click on them, it is a firm approval and a firm rejection. There won't be a window popping up asking you to put any comments. So if you are planning to reject, do bear in mind that it will just be a rejection and you will not have a chance to leave comments. However, if you scroll down, at the bottom of the notification, you can always add a comment, maybe also an attachment if you're so inclined, but you can add a comment and say, I am rejecting this because X, Y, and Z. And then you click reject, and then your direct report receives a notification back, letting them know it was rejected, but they'll also be able to see those comments and see those reasons. So you can do it in this way. What you can also do is click actions and, for example, request more information, and this way you can send them a direct message back. It's neither approval nor rejection. It's somewhere in the middle. It's like something isn't quite right. Are you sure you've submitted the right date? You said 13th and you submitted 12th. So you're not rejected, but you might have a very good reason to reject regardless. So just bear these things in mind. So I'll be a good manager and I'm going to click approve on this notification. So once it's approved, and I'm going to click on my bell icon again, my number from 18 went down to 17 and that notification disappeared. So it's no longer the second notification, it's just gone. I've performed an action on it.
Sorry about all
It's
that.
okay. No, keep
So
asking.
behind that annual leave request,
Yeah.
is this system also monitoring how much leave people have taken?
Yes,
Are they able to access that information themselves rather than asking?
of course. It's a detail. So it's actually both. You as line manager and obviously them as employees, they get to see their full history. And everybody will be loaded with the right annual leave allowance that is correct for them. Yes. In which case they will never be able to go over because the system will stop them. Oh, you haven't got any more annual leave days to book. In which case they will not be able to do that.
Brilliant. And in terms of carrying any leave over,
All built in.
all built in?
All the rules
Okay.
up to 5 days for 3 months, but these are hard rules.
Yeah.
So just something to bear in mind. 3 months, if you don't use them, gone off the system. So all built in, nothing to worry about. And that includes work patterns, that includes part-timers, your people working over weekends, and it's all encompassing.
And researchers working on fixed-term contracts that are often extended, that will.
Once the extension is updated on the system, when it's approved, then obviously all the recalculations of the balances will be applied and they will get automatic. Yes, absolutely. So that's the whole point of having an integrated system. It does all the maths for us. At the moment, HR has to calculate the days kind of manually. They have some formulas. It's all in the system. It's super nice like that. So nothing to worry about. So for the expense approval, there's another way in to show your approvals, which I'm going to show because it's also very helpful. In majority of cases, you will be accessing the bell icon, but I particularly like going into, in this case, Navigator, Tools, and there's something called the work list. And the work list is already telling you that what you will be looking at are those notifications and approvals. And you can see by default, the ones that are assigned to you, you have to do an action on them. So you can see my expense one that has just come through here to work on. The nice thing about this screen is you have the ability to search for a keyword. So if you had a sea of different potentially notifications, I wouldn't say that you would, but maybe, if you didn't access the system for, I don't know, a few days or maybe a few weeks, then you can search for a keyword, type expenses, and then it will just come up with those relevant ones that you need to perform an action on. And by default, they are assigned. So these are the ones that you have to do something with, approve, reject, and so on. But maybe you approved that annual leave request, and the day later it's like, oh, have I approved it? Or I don't remember. You can change this status, for example, to completed, and then it will show you the top one, which is the one that I have just approved. Like, yeah, okay, I approved that for Anne, so that I can remind myself. So it's really cool like that. So I particularly like the work list, which is why I'm showing it to you. But everything else works the same. I can click on this notification of the expenses one, and it's a busier one. It's a busier screen because it is an expense report, so it's slightly more complicated. But ultimately, you have those actions to approve, reject in the top right corner, maybe request more information, and so on. But like I said, you are approving this in principle. Having said that, you still have an ability to see the expense items that were submitted, and that includes the itemization. You can see it's Travel UK, and it's fully itemized to the full amount as identified as Hotel UK item. You can click through to it, see the detail of what that was. You can see the amounts. Oh, it was a hotel. So you can see those details if you really want to. If there was an attachment in there and a receipt, you can view them, but obviously you wouldn't necessarily be perhaps interested in that. Then you also have the comments, and you also have the attachments in here, so it comes with every notification. Ultimately, again, I'll be a good manager. I click approve. And once it's approved, it disappears, and then I have no tasks that are assigned to me. I don't have to perform any approvals any longer. Any questions? Yes?
When the line manager approve staff claim, you just say that, and if he or she think that another code is more appropriate, for example, one group have 3 class and one is more appropriate, can he change the code and prove it?
You cannot change it, and in fact, even if you could, I would still be encouraging people to actually reject it and make sure that the employee gets it right next time. So it's that, but you can't anyway. So just reject it and make them aware that they, or maybe use the other information. Please charge it to this project code. You've used the wrong one. Then they are able to access that submitted report, update it, send it for approval again. So if you want to be checking that level of detail, you can. Okay. If there are no more questions about the self-serve aspect, I'll show you the PI report. So what I'll do is I will log into the testing environment. So in the testing environment, I am actually logged in as myself because I am set up. And in fact, I have access to almost everything on the system. So please do not get scared with the headings and the functionality that's available to me. I can literally see anything. Obviously, this wouldn't be quite so busy. So I'm gonna click on the navigator, and like I said, I get a lot of different access. I'm gonna scroll down to tools where the work list was, so that is still under tools. And you will have a link called reports and analytics. And in fact, this is the way to access all reports, any reports. Maybe you want to access your line manager dashboard, because you'll be line managers, you'll be able to run reports on, let's say, your staff absences. So think of line manager dashboard as access to reports that are kind of HR based, used to manage your team. But obviously, as PIs, you will have access to the PI report, and it's still all accessed in the same way, reports and analytics. There is no other link to click. For all reports, you click on that. This will take you to a sort of blank page. In the top right corner, you have an option to browse catalog. This is the best way in. So you click browse catalog, which will take you to a catalog of all the different reports. Again, I have access to everything, so this is quite busy. On the left-hand side, you will be able to navigate to that report, but the best way in that we recommend is actually going into dashboards. So what I will do in the dashboards, I'm going to collapse all the different dashboards that I have access to because I have access to way too many. And on this list on the dashboard, I'm just going to... So in the dashboards again, there will be something called UOB Customs Research. So if you expand on that, there will be a projects dashboard. There's only going to be one, and in fact, you'll probably not see very many dashboards at all, so it will be easy to find on this list. So I'm going to click on projects. And the default report that you're going to see is going to be project, budget versus actual. So this is your PI project. I have many more tabs at the top. Again, this represents my level of access. By default, you will just get this result. At the top, you have the parameters of that report. So you will have to select yourself, find yourselves on the PI full name list. So I'm going to pick a researcher. Obviously, you have an option at the bottom to search for your name because this is very much alphabetical order. So I'm going to pick an example. Then, depending on the PI you selected, then you have to select the project or projects that you are managing that you want to view the financial data information for. And in this case, I have access to 4, and you will see their numbers. So you'll know exactly, okay, I am a PI on 4 projects. These are the 4 that I have access to. So you can just view financial data for all of them, some of them, one of them. You can tick those boxes in this way. So first, I'll just tick 1 and show you the result. So I'm going to click a box. That's the only project that I'm interested in reviewing. I click apply. And this then updates the data. So I'm going to scroll down and talk about what you're looking at. So it is made up of 2 parts. The first part, which is this, are your kind of infographics. So what we have here is 3 tiles at the top, which are telling you the total percentage spent that you have of costs on your project for directly incurred costs. So these are the costs you can directly influence. This is your money to spend. You can spend them. Which means that excludes staff costs because they are not kind of classed technically as costs that you can directly influence. So this is literally how much percentage-wise money you have left. And on the right-hand side, the far right, this is your actual remaining balance. So this is the how much actual money. So it's 12K and a bit left for you to spend. Again, excluding those costs you have no influence over. They are still there. I'm going to show you where they sit. But just very important to explain exactly what you're looking at.
Try to go to the
here.
services.
Yes. Yeah. And then in the middle, what you have is your time through projects. So if you kind of juxtapose the two, total percentage spend against the time through projects, like, oh, I spent 13%, but I'm actually 75% into my project. Maybe there's an action I need to take. Maybe there's something I need to do. So this is already giving you some information like, well, I'm potentially running out of time, and I've still got quite a big chunk of money left to spend on those costs that I can actually directly influence. Then you get a breakdown of the balances remaining by expenditure category because your budgets will be loaded against those expenditure categories. In this case, I have only 2, but in other cases, you might have access to pots of money against other expenditure categories. So I have other directly incurred and travel and subsistence. So I can see if I hover over with my mouse, I can see exactly that I have this much money still left to spend. So I'm effectively viewing how much money I have left against those expenditure categories. Then if I scroll down, this is the second part of the report. I get a full breakdown of everything, the whole budget of my project. So I can see my full name, I can see my project number, I can see the project name as well, how it's defined on the system. I can see the project organization, start and end dates, and then I have my expenditure groups. So I have my directly incurred costs, also some directly allocated costs. So all of this is what you are familiar with. Then we have a column for budget amounts. So this is how much budget was loaded. This is how much budget you have available to spend on your projects. Then you have the cost amount. So up until right now, this is how much money I have spent on this project. And then we have the committed cost column. At the moment, there is nothing committed on it, but the commitments would be the POs, the purchase orders that are approved on the system, and they haven't yet been receipted. So approved POs appear as commitment. And at the moment, that is the only way to show commitments. And these are the only type of commitments that will appear on this report. It would be great if we could have something in there for, let's say, staff costs, and say maybe this is the plan. So effectively, it's not a commitment; it's more of a forecast. And I know the research finance team are very keen to be able to provide you with something there, some kind of forecasting ability. But that is not what the committed cost column is about. So I'm just making it super clear. These are all just approved POs against the budget. Once they are receipted, then they move into the cost amount, and ultimately everything that becomes a cost then will just appear in the cost column. Then you have the one subtracted with another remaining balance, and then also percentage spend calculated on all of those costs. So with all those different costs directly allocated, maybe the ones that you haven't got a direct influence over, work with your project managers, work with your research finance team, making sure that you take action when action is required to make use of the budget that is available to you. That is the key message here. Question?
So is this replacing the boxing reports that we receive every month?
Yes.
It is. And can we search one period it's on this?
I think you get to see the full.
So you only get the full, you can't like request a quarterly breakdown.
No. But what you can do, so this report is on demand. So you mentioned schedule, you get a monthly report. This is on demand, you can't schedule it. So you have to go in and check. The figures, the cost figures are updated every night because that's where things are posted to GL. So just so you know, again, the refresh rate of it. You have the ability to export the report. So you can export into, for example, Excel. So if you want to track it in this way, you can every month, let's say, save it and create a snapshot for yourself. So I can save this and just show you the output. It is literally just put that table in here, and you can see all your figures. And you can call this at the end of the month, I don't know, April's report. This is your figure. But what you can do on each report is actually, for the costs, these are all links, because there's a data behind them. So I'm going to click on the travel and subsistence one and show you that you get to see the detail of those transactions. So I have expenditure category, travel and subsistence. I can see the expenditure type, travel overseas. Task number that was selected was 1.1. Task name, so this is, I know exactly the organization this is linked to. Then there is a transaction number, which you can then use to query things with finance office, research finance, and so on, and some expenditure comments. And I suspect, I can't see that there is an expense report on here, but I would imagine that you'd be able to, by reviewing this information, be able to identify, oh yeah, this is an expense for maybe Travel UK, and you can see it's there. I should imagine for this particular type, it probably came through from Key Travel because of how the expenditure comments appear here, but that gives you a pretty good level of detail. Oh yeah, I know what's happened. London, Euston, yeah, I made that trip, or my research fellows made that trip. We are still working on the expenditure comments to put as much information into them as possible to give you exactly what you need to be able to identify the costs. So hopefully this is our aspiration, and it's already working pretty well, but we are always working on improving this. Something to bear in mind, when we are migrating existing projects, we will only migrate the balances. So all the costs that you have incurred on your projects, you will be able to drill down into, but you will only see one line. And there's going to be some kind of comment, migrated costs, something along those lines. The full detail, you will have to run your Boxy report, because your access to Boxy will still stay there. You'll be able to run your details on that, but what will be migrated over is this just one line, migrated cost, bang, this is our figure. Going forward, new costs incurred will be broken down and drillable in this way, so you can see the details behind them. So I hope that this is useful, helpful.
Is
against our clients?
I'm not sure if I'm.
Just trying to
Yeah.
understand how much reporting we can actually do from this tool. So, because against a lot of the research grants, we can only report on defrayed costs. But is this the actual defrayed cost, or is this stuff that's being just committed against those codes?
So the as far as the report is concerned, commitment is approved POs. Nothing else is a commitment. Everything else, once you spent your money on something, you spent the budget, that appears as a cost.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Okay.
No, it's fine. So if we've still got access to the Boxy system,
Yeah.
that would probably just
For historical data.
Okay.
For historical data. No new data will be created. So this is just the detail of the costs that were incurred at the time before go live. Post go live, your details will be here because you will be making all your transactions, and we are actually completely switching over there's going to be a different ledger, there's going to be different payroll, it's going to all be sitting in Ucore.
Are you saying that you have some specific reports that you can only use for a certain thing?
Yeah.
Right, so you would need, take this away, Tom.
Okay, we'll do.
Take it away, what's your name?
Virginia.
Virginia,
Virginia Paul.
Virginia Kaur. I'll get one of my team
Yeah.
to chat with you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're going to give you what you want, they're going to talk to you.
It's just a matter of understanding how much of this we can actually use for actual reporting.
I understand, and I think what we all have to remember as a group is this. This system has been built with UOB feeding in their requirements. And so you currently have a system that's between 20 and 30 years old. And that has taken, that's decades of people doing the same job and expanding on it. And that will never happen again because the system moves too quickly. It's updated every 3 months. But what we will not be able to have is sometimes you will have specific inquiries that are key core to you that might not be to this gentleman here. But if it's a key core requirement that is shared by lots of people, we will build that in after your feedback.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes you get different funding bodies and they're required to report in different ways. So DWK versus ATI versus EPSRC, for
So
example.
we still have a research finance team that we're looking after from the claims, and they have more sophisticated functionality. So what we're seeing here is just what the other academic would see.
We will get that, and I understand that because I came from RC UK. So I understand that, I'm the reporter, and I implemented this system at RC UK. So I understand what the requirements are. But there may not be the specific requirements that you need, but together, in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, we will have a system that we will all build into.
Thank you.
Question?
Will trading accounts run the same way as grant accounts?
Which account, sorry?
Trading accounts.
Trading. I can't say that I know the answer, so I'll take that away.
This is a research grant.
So this is a research grant, so I would imagine that all the other ones would be accessed by having a different role in the system and run as a commitments actuals against an actual budget code, just like any other budgets. So research project managed in this way, any other budget, you will have access to a separate suite of reports to manage those. And they give you a full breakdown of all your committed costs and actuals. You are able to drill down into transactions. You can see those individual item lines for everything that is coming through into your budget. So there is a report. I want to say not dissimilar to the Boxy reports. It's better, but you get that level of detail.
Can I ask, when you search for the PI name,
Yeah.
is that just because you logged in, or does that mean I can have a look at anybody's grant?
You will have a look at everybody's grants, yes.
Doesn't that strike you as a bit bad?
There are no secrets.
Well, I can understand finance being able to see everybody's, but if I wanted to see how much is left in someone else's grant, I shouldn't be allowed to see that.
Tell me why you shouldn't.
It's not my business.
Then don't check
no.
it.
Yeah, but people, okay, but people are inherently otherwise, I don't know.
I think And we wouldn't do anything that would be detrimental to that, would we?
If it's a trading account, it ought to be confidential.
Please forgive me.
If it's a trading account, it ought to be confidential.
Right.
Access in different
Can I
different
just
ways.
say, the access part would be very difficult, because you will have a role and a responsibility, and that will be linked and agreed with your line management of what you can actually do as a cost centre.
That is then treated as at a cost centre level. But we know research projects are organised in a completely different way. They cut across, they have their own separate
Your trading
budgets.
accounts are, this isn't.
Yeah.
We can check. You're looking very sceptical at me. Let's check. But I assure you it is.
And where we're the lead partner on a project with multiple institutions,
Yes.
do we get all of that information on there in regards to their elements of the project as well?
You are, you don't know.
Is that-
You take a look away and see how that's been done.
Other institutions, you said.
So you could be in partnership with not
Mm-hmm.
or the queuing hospital. Yeah.
So for example, we're lead partner on a project with University of Manchester. We do the overall reporting. So we
How do you currently feed that home?
I ask research finance for updates.
Will we fed in the same way?
I have a feeling I know the answer. When you have, let's say, multiple funders, the way the tasks are structured is for one funder you will have a task at the top level 1.1, and that will be your funder, and then underneath that there will be subtasks for that funder. Then if you have another funder, it starts with 2.1, and then you have that funder, so that's kind of for us. The external ones, I think, are coded in starting with a 50.1, and that will be your external one. The reason why it's 50 is just to make sure that it's always at the end, and there's never, if we pick number 3, then we might actually have a funder with 3.1, which is why we put it at the end and it's number 50. I will double check it, but I remember seeing it, and I think it starts with 50.1, and you would have it on the task structure itself. How that's then populated onto the report and what you can see, the expenditure items and so on, I will get that checked and clarify. It's an important question, so I will make it part of that Canvas page so that the answer is there, so that it's super clear exactly what you see as part of that task structure. So, very good question, thank you.
So what about the university accounts, the GBA accounts? So when you get a project to do in plan for a short term, because money that comes from through university with applying with the system, so they're not currently in the Oxford reports and the pilot reports and so on.
I'm so sorry.
So when we take project students into the lab, so for example the master's students or the undergraduate students, they come with small pots of money, but
Yeah.
the GBA account is not on the research council
Okay.
process, and I was just wondering how we do that.
I'd have to check. Susan, I'd have to check.
Is it institutes?
Yeah, I think it's institutes.
Can we check?
I've noted it down, but if it's an institute account, then in which case that will be managed as part of the normal expenditure budget.
We will come back.
We will come back.
Can I ask you a question as well? Going back to the question of staff, can you just clarify how it reports the staff costs? Because you said, or I think you said that the sort of summary at the top that we get doesn't it excludes staff,
Yes,
but then on your breakdown
Yes.
you've actually got directly incurred staff.
of course, yeah.
So could you just clarify what's in and what's out with regards?
So you can see at the bottom the full breakdown of your full budget for your project. However, what we are showing at the top is the percentage spent versus the time through project on all the costs that you can actually influence. This is the money that I can spend. So we are excluding the staff costs, not to create an impression that maybe you have more money available to you than you do, because there are still staff costs coming.
The reason for it.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to clarify what is actually shown. So if I had, say, for example,
Mhm.
a research associate that was a directly
Yeah.
purely working on that project, and they're on a fixed term contract, so the funds are committed.
Uh-huh.
I can't influence
So that committed, you call it committed cost, is not going to be committed on here. So this is something that you would kind of need to know. This is your forecast effectively. This is not a commitment as far as the system is concerned. There's no way to lock it as a commitment and show it here, oh yeah, I've still got this. You kind of have to know, which is why when you have a look at this figure, £12,000 is actually made up of these two. The remaining balance is for these two, other directly incurred and travel and subsistence. Everything else is not included because these are the costs that you cannot directly influence. So, but you still can track them, and you still should be tracking them, and you still should be taking action together with research finance if there's anything that you need to do. Like, but you can see you have the DA staff in there, and you are 75% into it. So actually, this is okay because 75 into the project, 75 on staff. So it's okay.
So essentially, those graphs and summaries above are actually those two columns there.
In this case, yes. But if you had a different spread across different other expenditure items, that might look different. So it's just these two because this is the example that I'm showing you. But it all depends on what expenditure items you can actually spend money on, and that will depend on the funding and the funder conditions and so on and so forth. If that makes sense.
Well, what's interesting is if all we're commenting on Adriano's grant, but at that top line you can see academic staff under DI, and it says percentage spend is 12.8%. We know with 75% through the project, which might alert the PI to think, okay, have I got some flex in the budget here to perhaps increase the staff on the project for the remaining time I've got left.
So what you can also do, just to show you at the end, I've only selected one project, but I could select multiple, and I want to show you the result of that. Now, because of the way that the infographics work, this is slightly, the infographics I wouldn't be looking at personally, because now you are conflating the two, and it kind of, the system will try and give you some kind of now you have the 44.1% spent, but you don't see the individual breakdown, and these are two separate projects. So the infographics become kind of meaningless, less meaningful, I guess. But what you get at the bottom is you still have your breakdown for the first project, but you also get the full breakdown for the second project. And if I selected maybe all four, you can in one go analyze and have a look at all of them, all of the details for all of your different projects, and let's say export them into an Excel because maybe that's the kind of analysis you want to do. So infographics, one by one. For the detailed information, you can use it across all of them and just have one summary looking at the health of your project kind of as a big picture if you want to do it in this way. So that is available to you. You can select those boxes, you can then export, play around, and so on. So you can see actually I'm overspent on some of them. Maybe that's what's happening on the projects. So this is how it works.
Ian, this is your area. What are you hoping this will bring to you and the University of Birmingham? It's to stop us not, handing money back, isn't it?
Well, that's part of it. It's just kind of give academics far more visibility of their grant expenditure, because proxy reports at the moment aren't very useful. I'd just be interested, a quick show of hands, for people who are familiar with this sort of area, does this look more useful than we currently have?
I think that you're correct about the boxing reports. There's a lot of manual work around to get this information and to be able to kind of accurately forecast from that. So I can see it being of benefit, but without using it, I don't really know how much we can drill down at the moment. But
And hopefully just those little graphics we put in at the start will at least give some helpful indication, particularly perhaps for academics who are less financially savvy, to give some sense of how much of my directly incurred non-staff funding will I use, and how far through my project am I? Because often as you come to the end of a project, there may be things you can legitimately spend your funding on, to support project impact related activities, for example, is the thing that might be directed to see.
take it away.
Because I have people who are co-writers on the ground that aren't necessarily in my institute or my school. So
Well,
the,
it's guys in Cambridge, so because we can look up any time.
like if I've got somebody leaving, I need to know a list of their grants without going talking to them and saying which grants are you actually co-IR and GPR. And at the moment I can run a box report and get all of that information in one go. So I know exactly what their PI are and what their co-IR and where those grants sit.
We've noted it down. We'll check.
Noted down, there is an out-of-box report that will give you that. Currently, I don't. If I wrote it down and put it on the thing that to highlight, what is your alternative for this? Currently, I haven't got one yes or no. Do we need it, yes or no? When can we do it?
So is there a way of project managers being able to access that information on the system without being PI?
They get access to a lot more actually. They're able to, if something's not quite right on the cost, they can split them, they can transfer them, they can play around, they can make the projects live, they can close them, they can do all sorts of things. They build the structure of the task lists for the projects, or actually that it's I think that's built on the WorkTrack side and then migrated over, so that's how it works. And then they build the contracts on the system as well. They get loads more, so they will always be your go-to people for all sorts. So this is a report you run, check the health of your project. If something is not quite right, you speak to them, they help. So for other information to wrap, these are the kind of things that are outside the scope of this session. So we obviously are aware of WorkTribe, that's been mentioned. It has been used for costing since 2016, so we are just expanding on the functionality that we've been using. We are not expecting academics to engage unless it is desired that they engage with this, but obviously this is something that is used by your support teams, and this will continue and it will grow. So if this is something that you're interested in, please speak to them. Same for hiring manager, just like last time, didn't have time to show you the application, but it is really important, and it was really important for you to spend enough time on the project report, because this is key. For hiring manager functionality, very similar, you will still be supported with that recruitment process. They have been trained, like I said, we are working with them, making sure that they understand, know the functionality, they can support you throughout the whole recruitment process. Having said that, detailed sessions, drop-ins, similar to this one, 1 hour long, 60 minutes, exist for both WorkTribe and Hiring Manager. We have that all posted on our intranet pages, so if you are interested in kind of more depth exploration of these topics, I invite you to attend those. They are free to attend at any time you want. So I talked about Canvas. Please access 30112. More information on that. PI page soon to be launched on it. We also have our internet page, so that's our internet link /new core. This will take you to, you'll be able to access the training, you'll be able to access the list of those drop-ins with dates, locations, and so on. You'll also be able to access FAQs. Lots of people ask a lot of questions, so we try to put those into those FAQs. So these are the two kind of pages, sub-pages on the new core website, which might be particularly useful to you. And if you have any more questions, that you will walk away, digest what you have just seen and heard, and think, oh, there's a really nice question to ask, please send it to newcore@contacts.lbhound.ac.uk. We will make sure you get your answers, and it is also one that is published on the FAQs, the Canvas page, as appropriate. So if there aren't any more questions,